the reason I'm talking about this, and sort of it's in my mind, is because it's a bit of a gripe for me. I am quite a mellow sort of guy, and I don't really get that annoyed very often. But when it comes to sort of people digging at sort of spelling and grammar and things like that, especially in informal emails and sort of Facebook and stuff, Facebook like, it sort of irks me somewhat. And I think it happened the other day, sort of on Geek Pride. I put a Facebook status up and somebody had said I spelled the word with an extra letter. You know, it's not like I didn't know how to spell the word. For some reason when I was typing it, I just added an extra letter. And with me, one of the other sort of issues I have is when I read things, and I can read them over and over and over again, and it will look fine, and then I'll post it, and then somebody will pick up a mistake, and I was like, I'm sure I checked that 3 or 4 times, but in my mind it was perfect. I'll give you an example. I was walking down the road with my friend, and we walked past this church, and I turned around to him and said, why do we have American churches? And he sort of looked at me strangely, and he went, what? And I went, American churches? And he went, dude, that says Armenian. But I had looked at it 3 or 4 times, the word Armenian, and Armenian had registered in my head, but for some reason I thought America, and it was just one of those things. And in my head it was American. I'd read it a couple of times, and I've done that loads where I'll read something, I write something, and I'll read it over, and I'll read past mistakes and not think anything of it. It's like, oh, that's that, and think that's perfect. And then when I post it, and I'll go back, you know, maybe later on, or my girlfriend will go, you made a mistake, or somebody else will go, you made a mistake. And to be honest, I don't mind actually people saying you've made a mistake. It's sort of the way some people go about it, which sort of slightly annoys me. It's like there's no sort of thought towards what is potentially a disability. Now obviously people won't know, but even if somebody didn't have dyslexia, it's sort of like, is it necessary for somebody to point out if you've added an extra letter under something on an informal email or a Facebook page? Not really, to be honest. You know, if it reads fine and it's not an absolute abortion of a sentence, and I don't see where's the problem. I could understand that I had written everything really, really badly. There was no punctuation and it just didn't make any sense. I can understand that, but you know, the odd sort of mishap now and again being picked up on is rather annoying. And I just think that people need to be sort of a bit more tolerant of these sort of things. Now, like I said, if people are writing things really badly, and I can understand when I'm writing for my website and writing articles and things like that, that if I'm spelling things badly and grammar's off and everything's off and it looks really bad, then that's not going to fly, especially if you want your website and stuff to be a success. But informal things like Facebook statuses and stuff like that, I just don't think there's an issue. I think people who make issues out of it, you know, well, a bit of a douchebag, to be honest. I just don't see sort of why there should be an issue there. It makes me feel stupid, and I know I'm not, you know, and it makes, you know, other people would feel the same. And I think with dyslexia, there's a lot of people out there who have it and struggle with it, and you know, just having a go or sort of being funny about it doesn't help. Constructive things are fine, but just, you know, going, oh, you're an idiot, that's wrong, or, you know, ha ha ha, you spelled that wrong. It's like, well, that's not helping me, to be honest. That's belittling me, making me feel a bit bad about myself, isn't it? I'm not going to learn from that because of, you know, you're not really giving me anything to learn from. And I think for me, you know, it's slightly ironic. I've been going on about how I can't spell very well, I'm not very good at grammar, and or I wasn't very good at grammar, and I'm not good at this, that and the other, and I can't articulate myself. when obviously talking to yourselves, and I write articles for a website, and I edit articles for other people on websites, and I check things, and I write poetry, and I love reading and things like that. All the things that I should really be, you know, good at or into, I am. And that's because I do love literature. I love sort of poetry. I love reading, especially history books. And I like reading stories and things. I like writing. I like being creative and writing things. It's just obviously I have issues when it comes to sort of the spelling and stuff side to it. But it was only sort of now, sort of at the age of 30, last year when I was 30, I'd written a piece on Geek about history, which is a subject I enjoy. It was called "It's Not the Truth, It's What You Believe." It's in the blog section. And it's basically about sort of historical inaccuracies and historical half-truths and lies, basically, that people believe because it's their national identity. So, you know, they use these sort of things to sort of say, well, that's who I am. It's a lie, basically. And I wrote that. I was quite impressed with it, and I went over it a million times, and it was really sort of, you know, I was like, yeah, that's pretty good. That is, I've got everything in there. You know, I've never done a sort of, basically, I haven't done anything like this since I was in university. So I posted it online, said, oh, to some people, what do you think? And obviously I got the grammar Nazis sort of ripping me to shreds. And I was like, it got to the point where I was just like, right, I'm never going to be able to do this. I was about to give up and just say, right, I'm just going to sack the whole thing off. You know, Geek Pride and everything, and just sort of like, I can't be this. And then I got an email from a guy from work, a guy called Chris Roper, who he writes novels, and he's done some articles for Geek Pride. He did one on quantum leaps of science, and he also wrote a book called Vestige, which is sort of science fiction novelette, which is very good. He's reviewed it on the page, and he works in the same company as me. He emailed me and he said, look, man, that's a really good sort of subject, and you know, I learned a lot, but you know, you need to sort of learn how things are done, you know, literally, grammatically. And that's okay. And he, as much as I was slightly sort of, you know, you get a bit defensive when somebody picks things at you, he did it in a way that was constructive, and he went about sort of actually giving me examples and showing me where the issues and where the problems were. And he actually went through the entire article, and he didn't rewrite it, he just showed me where all the problems were, and he highlighted them, and he put little sort of kind of in Word, he added little bits, now this should be here, and this should be this, and this sound better, and things like that. And that really, really helped. They even sort of kind of gave me sort of some books I can read. So I've got one here called Grammar Rules. And you know, I'd never thought I'd be reading a book on sort of grammar, to be honest. It's not exactly the most interesting read in the world, but it actually helps because it's got quite a lot of examples, and it shows you examples of things that are wrong and ones that are right. And you know, that really helped. And I can actually say, no, grammatically, I think I'm pretty good. And I know the difference between a comma and a semicolon and like a full stop, and when you should use a semicolon in complex lists, or obviously when you want to attach something to the end of a sentence. Stuff like that, which I, you know, was oblivious to before, because nobody in my academical career had ever sort of said to me, well, this is what you're meant to do, or sort of kind of worked it through with me in a sort of way that I could learn. You know, there was nobody who sort of went, well, this is where the issues are and this is what we can do to help, that I can remember.